Hi everyone! I hope you're having a good day today. I want to say thank you so much for your love and support on my first tour video. I was really anxious about my voice, so it was encouraging to hear that a lot of you found it calming and relaxing. But of course, please feel free to give me any kind of feedback so that I can create more videos that we can enjoy together. Now, I'm taking you with me on a dream tour of Jeju's fall. I never intended to change my island so drastically, but after over 3 months of work, I am really happy with how everything turned out. When I dream of other islands, I often miss details or tucked away areas, so even if many of you may have already dreamt of Jeju on your own time, I hope that you'll stay with me anyway. And welcome to Jeju. I'm so excited to show you around. Overall, I was inspired to make this version of the island a little more realistic. I chose road designs based on the tree-lined streets in Korea, and I tried to build different parts of the island based on some of the favorite places I visited when I went to Jeju last couple of years. If you're interested in the design codes, I'll post them in the description box below. I also have a slight change in my villagers since summer. My original 2 villagers, as I said before, were Sylvia and Dom, but a couple of weeks ago Callie came to visit and I just had to invite her. While I'm sad to see Dom go, the cute squirrel has been a wonderful addition to our community. I also decided to do away with trying to show all my pathwork on the map. Although I really loved that idea for the first build, this path design that I chose didn't work well with the in-game paths this time, which is why this map looks relatively empty and uncomplicated. I tried to divide the island into an urbanized, structured neighborhood to the right and a little bit more natural landscape to the left. So this time we'll start the tour by exploring the right side of the island. I feel like the playground is such a versatile space where anyone of any age can come and be a part of the community. Since most of the residents of Jeju spend time in the plaza, I wanted to extend that communal space. When we turn the corner, we're now in the seaside part of the residential area. What inspired me to start rebuilding and sort of rebranding my island was because I wanted to recreate these beautiful dark beaches in Jeju. Jeju is a volcanic island with the dominant dormant volcano Hallasan in the center of the island. So the majority of the island features rocks and sand from toughened lava, and I wanted to represent that somehow. I used this wonderful variation of the path, and it continues in all of the beaches surrounding Jeju. And the other side of this beach is the Jeju Fish Market. It has freshly caught fish, sea creatures, and other array of random items. Because I always find these markets chaotic, I try to really clutter up the beach. And this is Sucker's house right across from the fish market. Jeju still has a lot of houses that are traditional to the island. The houses are surrounded by olle, which is an outer wall composed of the same volcanic rock found across the island. The etymology of the word is derived from Jeju's dialect that means little alley between the street and the front door. I recreated these walls by using stone fences as well as stone design on the simple panels. This helped to separate each resident's houses and the yards, and I think it also added some dimensionality to an otherwise flat neighborhood. Walking past Diana's elegant house, we arrive at the marina. I imagine this marina to be where the boats dock for the day after an overnight fishing trip, and where the deep-sea divers of Jeju or Haenyeo get together after a day of diving to dry off and hand over the catch to the merchants in the market. They are such an integral part of Jeju's past and present that I wish I could have paid more homage to them in my build. Jeju is also known for 3 unique waterfalls. I was inspired by Jeongbang Waterfall to build this particular area. It is the only waterfall in Korea that flows directly into the sea. The legend is that a holy dragon lived underneath the waterfall, and his powers and spirits in the water could cure diseases and bring rain during the drought. One thing I do wish I had done is to build this waterfall on the mouth of the river, which is the only way to connect the cliff to the ocean in the game. But since I thought of this waterfall pretty late into building everything else, I went ahead and carved out my peninsula instead. I am keeping the idea in the back of my mind. The next street over is the shopping district of Jeju, which includes Able Sisters, Nook's Cranny, Breeze Bakery, and a plant shop. I focused on dimensions in this build like I mentioned before, and I think this is one of my favorite views because of that. There's Nook's Cranny in the foreground, but I can still see the bakery the street over. I was afraid that a large flat chunk of land would be kind of boring, but even though there isn't crazy terraforming going on here, the different patterns on the ground, different fences, the trees and other items make this district interesting and realistic. And actually, I used to have the bakery on the second level because I thought that is what was gonna give dimensionality. But throughout building other areas, I was really annoyed that it would block my views if I walked behind it, and the area on top of the cliff was too small to decorate meaningfully. I also didn't want to use an incline just for this one area, so overall, I think it was the right decision. Sometimes keeping it simple is the way to go. Welcome to Breeze Bakery. This build wasn't inspired by anything in particular. I just personally love baking, so I wanted to express that part of myself in the game. To get a little personal here, I often feel like many things in my life are out of my control, and it leads to incessant doubt and worrying about what could go wrong somewhere in the future. When I feel this sort of existential dread come on, I turn my oven on to bake something. It forces me to pay attention to which ingredients I need and how much to get the desired outcome, similar to setting up a science experiment. I feel much more grounded to the present instead of wondering about what hasn't happened yet and what may never happen. Anyway, I have always been less confident about interior design in the game. Somehow I'd end up with all the furniture along the walls, so there would be an awkward empty space in the middle of the room. but I started paying attention to some of the interior geniuses in the community, and I think I've definitely improved. I try to use different furniture that provide more surface area to put little detailed things on, and I also try to think about how a certain space would be organized or not organized in real life, and ask myself questions like what would be on the floor, what would be hanging on the walls. Sometimes I forget about details like this because I have to look at items in the game completely isolated from the environment, which I wouldn't do in real life. Next door to the cafe is the plant shop. For this version of the island, I used the pumpkins from the Halloween event and just turned them around so they look like regular pumpkins. The next interior build that I want to show you is Ronnie's lab. I study science in real life, so I couldn't pass up on the opportunity to design a lab. My focus is in pharmacology, or the study of how drugs work and how they interact with our bodies and with each other. So I also thought it would be fun to make Ronnie a witch scientist who studies plants for their medicinal uses and qualities. And welcome to another version of Jeju's outdoor library. The inspiration behind this library is Kim Young-soo Library in Jeju, which used to be a small library in an old elementary school that was in danger of closing. Some parts of the island remain more rural than others, and these communities experience similar struggles to other rural communities around the world, as younger people tend to move out to the city for more opportunities, and young parents with children are tentative about joining or staying in the community because of the lack of resources and facilities that would provide safe environment for children to play and grow. In this particular neighborhood, the nearest public library was a 30-minute car or bus ride, so renovating this library was an effort to revitalize the area and a starting point to build up the community again, and it succeeded. The library ended up being a hub for everyone in the community to come together and work together on the future of the community. Some of my favorite memories from going to Korea always revolve around food in general, as well as street food trucks and tents. So I wanted to recreate those memories in this area. And this is the remainder of the residential area on this side of the island. You can see here that I continued using the stone wall around the houses. If we take these stairs up, there is a sneaky path to the secret beach behind these houses. This is one area that I didn't change at all because I thought it was quite peaceful and I can imagine just coming here to relax. Jeju is also known for horses, and there's a beach with lighthouses that look like horses. And I wanted to build something like that, but I realized that I couldn't place anything on the 4th level cliff. And if you can imagine the general anatomy of a horse, it needs a head, a neck, body, and legs. So it requires 4 layers. I either had to sacrifice the neck or the legs. And obviously both of those are really important elements that makes a horse. So the spirit of the horse lighthouse just lives on in my 2 lighthouse areas, one of which you'll see later. Anyway, this is the entrance to the museum. I was inspired by Bonte Museum, which is also in Jeju. The name of the museum means original form, and the intention of the museum was to curate and display art that reflected Jeju's unique tradition and nature. The building was designed by famous Japanese architect Tadao Ando. His style emphasizes nothingness and empty spaces that represent beauty of simplicity influenced by the idea of Zen, combined with Japanese culture and aesthetic. This is reflected in his use of exposed concrete, which is meant to look clean and weightless. My interpretation of this style was to use simple panels for the concrete exterior mixed in with the Zen fences. I also incorporated jail bars and black flooring to provide the feeling of clean sterility as well. But the more I look at this area, the more I feel like there is a lot of room for improvement. One of my favorite areas of this build is this lake. I was inspired by a lot of Instagram posts with a huge lake and forests across it, and I also realized that Bonte Museum has some lake or marsh surrounding it, so it kind of worked out aesthetically and technically, and I think it's a good use of the space hiding behind the resident services building. Speaking of hidden areas, there is also one place that requires a ladder right next to the resident services building. When we first entered the island, this may have looked like just a random waterfall, but it was actually an overlook where you can see the forest across the lake. Now, this is the beginning of the other side of the island, which I wanted to be a little bit more natural and less structured than the right side. Earlier, I mentioned that there are 3 famous waterfalls in Jeju. We're on our way to the next waterfall. There are lots of these rock statues, which can also be found on other parts of the island. These are known as 도라르방, literally translated to a stone grandfather in Jeju's dialect. They are considered to be gods that protect people from demons and are often found outside of gates. They are similar to the totem poles in mainland Korea, but the origins of these statues are not as clear, and they are unique to Jeju Island. This is a waterfall that I've actually visited twice now, called Cheonjian Waterfall. The name means where the sky meets earth, suggesting that this waterfall connects the two, which I think is beautiful. We're now back to the entrance of the island. I put down a lot of benches in hopes that maybe the residents would use them instead of sitting on the ground, but I'm starting to think it's a futile effort. I made this small beach Yuche flower field. Yuche flowers, also known as rapeseed flowers in English, are yellow flowers in the cabbage family that bloom around April and peak in May. Although these flowers originate from the west, Jeju is known for an early blooming event that covers the entire island in bright yellow, which attracts a lot of visitors during the season. This is of course the wrong time of the year for the flowers to be in bloom, but since it's such a vivid imagery related to Jeju, I wanted to include it. The renovation of this side of the island began with moving the campsite out to the beach. Although I did love the tucked away campsite, it was so out of the way that I never visited it, even when there was someone visiting. I was inspired by glamping mixed with sort of a boho vibe using macrame patterns, tropical plants, palm trees, and a black acoustic guitar. This is probably the street that I love the most. I was inspired by the tree-lined streets in Korea, which usually showcase the oak trees, but some streets have ginkgo trees that turn beautiful golden yellow in the fall. I wish there were yellow trees in the game, but I also fell in love with the deep red colors. Here is another cafe, but one with a view out to the ocean. I actually didn't like coffee at all and managed to stay caffeine-free throughout college. But when I was in Europe on an exchange research program, I was introduced to espresso drinks. My parents love coffee, so when they came to see me, my mom convinced me to try a cappuccino, her favorite drink. She sprinkled a little bit of raw sugar on a bit of foamed milk, and that's how I fell in love with coffee. I'm not entirely sure what to call this area. Honestly, decorating the beaches is still the most difficult task for me, so I was sort of out of ideas at this point. I love the look of wave breakers, so I built the rest of the scene around them. I think it sort of ended up looking like an abandoned beach, and I think it looks okay. This is Grandpa Gonzo's house. I really wanted to give Gonzo a farm because I had this image of Grandpa Gonzo growing his vegetables away from the kids in the city. But he also seemed to really enjoy relaxing, so I decorated his yard with some comfortable seating. Instead, I made a farm right behind his house in my own yard, so sometimes he would come over and help me with farming mushrooms, pumpkins, and other seasonal crops. And finally, this is my house and the other lighthouse area on the island. I wanted to make it look like a lighthouse keeper's house, and I really wish I thought to continue this nautical theme on the inside. But I designed the interiors of my house so early on in building the island, I completely forgot about what I'm doing on the exterior. Thank you so much for watching yet another video of me touring my own island. I talked a lot about using spaces intentionally in my last tour video, so I wanted to ask, do you think I improved on designing with intentions? I do think ultimately it's silly to compare designs. The last version of my island had a very different idea behind it compared to this current version. I think this version works really well with the current season and the snowy winter, so I will be updating my DA to winter soon with some lovely holiday decorations. So if you're interested in checking out some changes, come visit Jeju again. Thank you so much for sticking around. I hope you have a good day or good night, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye!